He stepped out of the altar's gates, and with a single stride, he ascended into the air. His figure was not entirely solid, and if one looked closely, their gaze could pass through him, seeing the altar behind him. Wong Lin hovered in midair, accompanied by the butterfly that had manifested after the divine chariot activated. The butterfly gently fluttered its wings, keeping his body in a balanced state. Members of the chosen immortal clan, 100 yards away, wore wary expressions, their eyes fixed on the middle-aged man, each of them retreating. Pagoda Mountain's eyes grew cold, and with a step forward, he shouted, "Who goes there?" The middle-aged man in the azure robe glanced at Pagoda Mountain, his gaze following him and sweeping across the chosen immortal clan members, before finally locking onto Wong Lin. A hint of seriousness appeared in his eyes. "You are not from here. From where do you come?" Wong Lin's expression was icy. With a single glance, he could tell the middle-aged man was at the peak of the Yang fulfillment stage, slightly stronger than himself. At that moment, Pagoda Mountain furrowed his brow, stepping forward and immediately launching into action. His right fist clenched, and the runes on his body flashed, gathering on his fist before he hurled it towards the middle-aged man. "Who goes there?" Pagoda Mountain roared. "Kneel." The middle-aged man in the azure robe sneered, his gaze sweeping over Pagoda Mountain as though he were an ant. Raising his right hand, he pointed forward, and an invisible ripple emanated from his fingertip, quickly spreading and enveloping the surroundings. As Pagoda Mountain neared, his face immediately turned pale, his body shaking violently. He could clearly feel a force within him preventing him from advancing, preventing him from striking. This force was overwhelming, as if it were an instinct, a deep imprint of a legacy etched into his very being. Standing 20 yards away from the middle-aged man, Pagoda Mountain couldn't move any closer. Hovering in the air, pain appeared on his face. His body trembled, and beads of sweat the size of beans poured from him. He clearly felt that the force preventing him from moving came from the runes and markings on his body, their power stopping him from resisting. It was as though he had met his natural enemy. No matter how strong he was, no matter how much stronger he became, facing this middle-aged man, he still dared not make a move. Under the pressure, Pagoda Mountain felt an intense, instinctive sense that with a single thought, the middle-aged man could crush him, sending his soul scattering. This feeling was something Pagoda Mountain had never encountered before in his life. But the moment it appeared, it felt as if it had always existed, deeply ingrained in the chosen immortal clan's ancestral legacy. There was no way to resist. Pagoda Mountain trembled, especially as the middle-aged man's gaze fell on him. He even felt an urge to kneel and worship. Yet, his dignity kept him gritting his teeth, trying desperately to resist this overwhelming force, this pressure from the depths of his soul and the imprint of the runes across his body. A low growl of struggle, nearly a roar, escaped from Pagoda Mountain's throat. His eyes were bloodshot, and what dripped from his body was no longer sweat, but something tinged with blood. In his struggle, Pagoda Mountain lifted his foot and took a step forward. But with that step, his body trembled once more, as if he was facing the entire heavens and earth. That step barely raised, and before it could fall, Pagoda Mountain's eyes darkened, and he coughed up a large mouthful of blood. His body could no longer withstand the pressure, and, with a sudden jolt, it felt as though invisible hands had pressed him down, causing him to kneel. 2 streams of blood tears fell from his eyes. His gaze, filled with sorrow and defiance, burned with fury as it pierced through the blood in his eyes. Yet, no matter how hard he tried, he could not rise. He could only kneel. "Lowly commoners, how dare you resist the slave's sigil? If I wished to kill you, with a mere thought, I could destroy both your body and soul. Leave." The middle-aged man sneered coldly. Pagoda Mountain's body was instantly struck by an invisible fist, and the sound of his bones cracking echoed. His body was sent flying, crashing into the ground 100 yards away with a tremendous impact. Struggling to get up, Pagoda Mountain's eyes burned with defiance and murderous intent. "Who are you?" he shouted. At this moment, not only Pagoda Mountain but all the members of the chosen immortal clan gasped in shock, staring at the middle-aged man in disbelief. The earlier scene had been so strange that they found it hard to accept. The ancestral elder's face turned pale. Staring at the middle-aged man, it seemed as though he had recalled something. His face drained of color, and his body trembled. The middle-aged man in the azure robe's expression was cold, tinged with a hint of pride. "Calmly," he said, "an immortal. Kneel and worship." The ancestral elder of the chosen immortal clan let out a bitter smile. He had no doubt about the man's words. It all clicked in his mind. He had read in the clan's ancient texts about the excitement and reverence their ancestors had shown when they encountered an immortal. There was no need to guess the man's identity. Once seen, one would immediately know. This was a saying passed down from the chosen immortal clan's ancestors. The elder had never understood before. He had mistaken the excitement and respect for heartfelt loyalty. But at this moment, upon seeing the immortal, his heart suddenly cleared. I cannot help but be excited, cannot help but show respect. The elder let out a bitter laugh, fell to his knees, and whispered, "Lowly commoner, I pay my respects to the celestial being." It was not only him. Around him, the members of the chosen immortal clan, under the gaze of the middle-aged man, trembled, their bodies seized by a force that forced them to submit, even if it meant death or having their souls shattered. They had no choice but to kneel. One by one, the members of the chosen immortal clan struggled and knelt, lowering their heads. After a moment, the only ones still standing were two, Wong Lin and Tom Mountain. Tom Mountain didn't kneel, he had already knelt once. This time, despite the surging blood and energy within him, despite the invisible force constantly pounding against him, his body resisted, refusing to bow. The sound of crashing echoed as large amounts of blood mist poured from Tom Mountain's body. He had already been wounded in his previous battle with Wong Lin, and now his condition was even worse. His eyes dimmed, yet they reflected an unwavering defiance from the depths of his soul. Wong Lin watched the scene, his brows slowly furrowing. He had figured out many things. Whether it is the chosen immortal clan or the immortal remnant clan, it is clear that they are all slaves to the immortals, just like the slave marks. Throughout generations, they will all be bound to serve the immortals. These slave marks were imprinted in their legacies, just like the Li Yuan clan's legacy. If Wong Lin hadn't experienced what happened with the Li Yuan clan, he would never have been able to recognize the truth so clearly. But now, everything was clear in his mind. This slave mark, when combined with the runic marks on the chosen immortal clan, becomes the slave sigil. It's obvious that this slave sigil is extremely domineering, far surpassing the slave mark of the Li Yuan clan. After all, the Li Yuan clan's slave mark only instilled awe toward a single immortal. But this slave sigil is different. It is very likely that, in the face of all immortals, everyone in the chosen immortal clan will kneel. This is not control, it is complete enslavement, turning the entire clan into the immortal's possession. Moreover, with the immortal remnant clan on Vermilion Birdstar, it was clear that this was not a small group but a vast one. Wong Lin's expression grew solemn as a bold thought began to form in his mind. It's very likely that, many years ago, before the immortal realm collapsed, there was a powerful clan that could even challenge the immortal realm. But in the end, this clan was crushed by the immortal realm. In fact, it's very possible that the four great immortal realms united to unleash a powerful divine art, turning this clan into immortal servants for all eternity. Wong Lin glanced at the trembling chosen immortal clan members who were kneeling with awe in their eyes and sighed inwardly. The man in the azure robe's gaze fell on Tom Mountain, his brows furrowing. He raised his right hand and pointed at Tom Mountain. Immediately, Tom Mountain's body trembled, and blood mist erupted from every pore, turning him into a blood-soaked figure in an instant. "Kneel." The man in the azure robe's voice was cold. Tom Mountain's eyes had already dimmed, but his gaze was filled with defiance. Yet the power of the slave sigil was something he could not resist. It was as though countless mountains were crushing him. With a loud crack, his knees shattered, and he collapsed onto the ground. At this moment, everything around them fell silent. Su Ligua, having sensed something was wrong, flew a great distance away, cautiously observing from afar, contemplating whether to resist or surrender if the demon head proved to be too much. The mosquito beast circled in the air, its gaze locked on the man in the azure robe, while the thunder frog, from a distance, stared coldly in his direction. The man in the azure robe glanced at Wong Lin, but did not act rashly. He had sensed Wong Lin's cultivation level, especially the butterfly fluttering beside him, which triggered a strong sense of danger in him. This person is not from this lowly clan. How did he get here? Judging by his aura, he doesn't seem to be an immortal. Who is he? The man in the azure robe's eyes flickered. He didn't provoke Wong Lin. Instead, his left hand pressed down on the air, and with a rumble, the door beneath the altar opened. The moment the door opened, black mist poured out, transforming into fierce mist beasts that filled the sky. The ghostly figure of the woman Wong Lin had seen earlier now appeared, but did not step out. She coldly stared at Wong Lin. The mist beasts manifested in the air. On the ground, the members of the chosen immortal clan, kneeling, had their faces changed drastically. But the power of the slave sigil prevented them from standing. It was an instinct, They simply could not resist. As the mist beasts formed, their eyes snapped open, revealing cold, ruthless gazes. With a series of sharp howls, the man in the azure robe pointed at the ground. In an instant, the mist beasts lunged toward the earth. Wong Lin's eyes narrowed as he watched this. A mist beast transformed into a five-clawed fierce bird and, with a rush, approached a member of the chosen immortal clan. It snatched the clan member into the air, threw them aside, and let out a terrifying scream that pierced through the clan member's body. As the mist beast devoured them, the clan member's body immediately collapsed, disintegrating into a mist of blood absorbed by the beast. Until the very end, the clan member never lifted a finger to resist. However, a flicker of struggle appeared in their eyes, but it was far too weak. On the other side, other mist beasts drew near the chosen immortal clan members, grabbing one after another, systematically engulfing them. Within moments, the scent of blood pervaded the surroundings, intertwined with a deep sorrow and helplessness. Each deceased clan member could not offer any resistance, their eyes reflecting profound sadness. In their hearts, at the moment of death, a realization dawned. Perhaps, this is the mission of my clan. Tower Mountain's knees shattered as he knelt on the ground. Struggling to raise his head, he watched his fellow clan members die in such humiliation. A bestial roar erupted from his throat, and the veins in his face bulged as if against the instinctual legacy of the sealing runes passed down through generations. The man in the azure robe coldly observed everything, his demeanor unchanged. The ancestral elder of the chosen immortal clan trembled, the wind howling around him. A young man beside him was swept up by a mist beast, torn apart in midair as it consumed him. Instinctively, the elder looked up, a drop of warm blood landing on his face and flowing down his cheek, his eyes reflecting deep sorrow and fury. Why, he murmured. At that moment, a mist beast soared in, grasping the elder and lifting him into the air. In that instant, it felt as if a force from the depths of his clan's soul ravaged his heart like a storm. The elder's eyes showed despair as he looked at the azure-robed man and shouted, "Why?" At this moment, as the elder's voice filled the air, the surviving clan members on the ground began to lift their heads and struggle, their gazes falling on the man in the azure robe. These gazes were filled with unending sorrow and rage. Just then, a mist beast in the sky charged away, its target distinctly those children hiding in the buildings far away. The man in the azure robe narrowed his brows, but made no move to intervene. The elder laughed bitterly, realizing his own impending destruction as the mist beast rushed toward him. Just then, Wong Lin sighed lightly, raised his right hand, and pointed into the void. Instantly, the mist beast that threatened to devour the elder shattered with a loud boom. The elder stared in disbelief at the scene. Meanwhile, the mist beast drew closer to the buildings, and the terrified cries of children could be heard calling for their loved ones. On the ground, the chosen immortal clan members struggled to raise their heads, low roars and growls erupting chaotically from their mouths. Despite his shattered knees, Tower Mountain's eyes blazed red as he attempted to stand. Even if his bones shattered again, he was determined to rise. Immortal, what do you take my clan for? We have guarded the profound Een Cauldron for countless years without pause, only to exchange it for this. For these mist beasts and for the deaths of our clan members. Now I finally understand. These mist beasts are the very things we have protected. Our clan's mission has become to serve as food for these beasts. If that is the case, I shall resist. I would rather be shattered to pieces than submit. Tower Mountain's roar finally burst forth from his throat. Not just him. At that moment, all the chosen immortal clan members on the ground roared in unison, their eyes reddening, the brow plants flickering violently as they struggled to stand. The man in the azure robe maintained a cold expression, a hint of disdain in his voice as he slowly spoke. Your clan fell and became slaves long ago. That is your fate. It cannot be changed. As he spoke, he raised his right hand and pressed forward, causing a series of explosive sounds to echo as blood mist erupted from the clan members' bodies, their struggling motions forcibly halted. Only Tower Mountain, in a fit of fury, charged from the ground. At that moment, the sounds of cracking bones accompanied his leap, yet he broke free. The azure-robed man's gaze flickered, his right hand pointing forward. Just then, Wang Lin sighed inwardly. He didn't wish to meddle, especially with the mysterious background of the azure-robed man, who turned out to be an immortal. But in this moment of contemplation, he spat out the fragment seal. As it flew, it positioned itself between Tower Mountain and the azure-robed man. The azure-robed man's eyes flashed with cold light, his right hand forming a seal. In an instant, a rune imbued with immortal energy materialized, hurling directly toward Wong Lin. "I thought you wouldn't intervene," the azure-robed man exclaimed as he surged forward, following the path of the rune toward Wong Lin. Wong Lin pointed with his right hand, and as the seal flickered, it immediately flew out, spinning in midair before crashing toward the man in the blue robe. At the same time, Wong Lin stepped forward and appeared next to Tom Mountain. He slapped his left hand on Tom Mountain's body, sending a wave of primordial energy into him. Tom Mountain's body was instantly thrown out, heading straight toward the mist beast charging toward the buildings. After this, Wong Lin turned, forming sword-like gestures with his fingers. He raised them and then slashed downward sharply. Instantly, the incoming runes shattered, dissipating into ripples. At this moment, the fragment seal descended. The man in the blue robe's eyes flashed with a cold gleam. His hands formed a seal, and his immortal essence circulated. A long spear materialized in his hand. The spear was entirely white, emanating a strong immortal aura. He gripped it tightly, and with a hearty laugh, he thrust it into the sky, colliding with the descending fragment seal. A thunderous crash echoed. The man in the blue robe staggered back, his face growing serious, though the fragment seal was forced back several yards by the impact. "Lowly clan slaves, strike together with me," the blue-robed man barked as he retreated. His command instantly resonated in the ears of the struggling members of the chosen immortal clan on the ground. It was an instinctive order, impossible to resist. Immediately, they all shot into the air, eyes filled with sorrow and struggle, but their bodies moved like lightning, all surrounding Wong Lin. Wong Lin's gaze flickered. As he retreated, the butterfly created by the divine chariot followed him, mirroring his every movement like a shadow. Wong Lin's mind stirred. He was still unclear about the exact power of the third divine chariot. His eyes flashed with cold intent as he stepped back, and with a hand gesture, an imprint appeared from his fingers, landing on the butterfly. Killing intent flared in Wong Lin's eyes as he pointed toward the man in the blue robe. The butterfly's body showed no visible change. Its wings still fluttered gently, but now with a slightly increased speed. Multicolored powder spilled from its wings, scattering in all directions. The man in the blue robe halted, his eyes filled with vigilance. He had noticed the butterfly earlier. There was something about it that greatly unsettled him. If it weren't for that, he would have already taken action. The members of the chosen immortal clan around them, their bodies almost completely out of control, flew toward Wong Lin. Their eyes were filled with growing struggle, yet they could not resist the instinctual force emanating from their inherited power. Wong Lin's gaze hardened as he watched the butterfly. He wanted to understand the peculiarities of the third divine chariot. Just then, the butterfly flapped its wings and flew away from Wong Lin, moving forward. In an instant, its wings stopped, only to flap again immediately. At that moment, without any warning, the man in the blue robe, who had been keeping his distance in caution, suddenly turned pale. There was no wind around him, but his hair began to sway backward as if caressed by a gentle breeze. A loud bang echoed from within him, and his body was jerked backward. He spat a mouthful of red mist into the air. The mist condensed into a red butterfly, which immediately flapped its wings. With another loud bang, blood mist sprayed from the man's chest, turning into another butterfly that flapped its wings. The sounds of impact rang out repeatedly. The man in the blue robe staggered back, his body thrown back with each beat of the butterfly's wings, the blood mist each time giving birth to another butterfly, causing unimaginable injuries with every flap. Fear and horror filled his eyes. He was unable to resist. It felt as if everything within him, even his immortal essence, was not his own but sealed by some strange force. The butterflies reappeared within the blood mist, and with each flap of their wings, the man was thrown further away, until he was pushed over 1,000 yards from his original position. His terror had reached its peak. Thunder, explode. In his struggle, the man in the blue robe almost screamed. A rumble echoed from within him, and his right hand suddenly shattered, transforming into blood and flesh. Inside, a destructive force surged. With this outburst, his face turned pale, but he regained control over his immortal essence. At this moment, he was overwhelmed with fear, his mind consumed by terror. What kind of divine ability is this? What kind of magical artifact is this? He had never seen such a bizarre artifact in his life. He couldn't fight back. Just one flap of the butterfly's wings had nearly torn him apart. Without hesitation, his body flashed, heading straight toward the altar below, desperate to escape. Wong Lin's eyes narrowed, and he inhaled sharply. He had a strange connection with the divine chariot, and faintly, he sensed that its most powerful attack had yet to be unleashed. At that moment, the multicolored butterfly by his side fluttered its left wing gently. The man in the azure robe, who had fled at great speed toward the altar entrance, suddenly froze the instant the massive doors slammed shut. A look of utter disbelief flashed in his eyes as his body began to dissolve from the feet up. In almost an instant, the disintegration reached his head, consuming everything. He was utterly erased from existence. At the moment of the azure-robed man's death, deep within a void of endless blackness inside the netherworld beast, a figure sat cross-legged. This person was shrouded in dark radiance, yet strangely, within that darkness, a trace of immortal power could be sensed. Suddenly, his eyes flew open. He stared straight ahead, a flicker of shock in his gaze. To destroy my avatar so easily. What kind of magical artifact is that? The butterfly's wings stilled, then dissolved into multicolored motes of light that slowly scattered, before once again transforming into the form of the divine chariot. Wong Lin let out a quiet breath of relief. A light sweat had formed on his forehead, something rare for him. But just moments earlier, with a mere flap of the butterfly's wings, the physical body and essence spirit of a peak Yang fulfillment cultivator had collapsed entirely. The sight deeply unsettled him. With this divine chariot paired with the parent-child Tao withering, I can battle cultivators at the early glimpse of Nirvana stage. A sharp glint appeared in Wong Lin's eyes as he scanned his surroundings. The members of the chosen immortal clan had returned to normal after the death of the azure-robed man. Each one bore a sorrowful and dazed expression, sitting silently on the ground, lost in confusion. In the distance, Pagoda Mountain limped back, wounded, carrying a large jar in hand, clearly having absorbed the mist beast that had lunged at the child. Yet the injuries were too severe. He managed to return only to collapse and fall unconscious. Time passed quickly. 10 days went by. During those 10 days, Wong Lin stayed within the chosen immortal clan. The clan's ancestral elder arranged a quiet and secluded place for him to rest. But Wong Lin did not idle. Through in-depth conversations with the elder, he grew increasingly certain, about 80% sure, that his earlier suspicions were correct. Still, the matter had little to do with him. Wong Lin's true focus was on how to escape this place. He had already ventured to the edge of the sky above. Just as Pagoda Mountain had said, there was a boundless flesh wall at the world's edge. From its surface shone a faint blue glow, creating the illusion of a real sky beyond. He had also searched nearly every corner of the surrounding lands, yet found no exit. At this point, Wong Lin was convinced the only way out had to be the teleportation array linked to the profound Yin Cauldron inside the altar. Even without mentioning the profound Yin Cauldron spirit guarding the teleportation array, that azure-robed man alone makes this place incredibly bizarre. He claimed to be an immortal, and the power he wielded resembled immortal power, but it also contained a trace of primordial energy. That aspect closely resembled immortal monarch Qishui of the Thunder Immortal realm. Coupled with the reactions of the chosen immortal clan members, it's entirely possible that azure-robed man truly was an immortal. Deep in thought, Wong Lin stepped out of his room. With a single stride, he vanished from the spot and reappeared on a plain in the eastern part of the continent. As soon as he arrived, a joyful screech rang out. The mosquito beast swooped down from the sky in great loops before charging toward him with gusts of wind. Not far off, the thunder frog lay sprawled like a small mountain, lifting its eyelids briefly to glance at Wong Lin before shutting them again. As for Su Ligua, he had vanished without a trace, off somewhere in pursuit of his own delight. The mosquito beast approached. Wong Lin smiled faintly and patted its head. The beast closed its eyes in contentment and once again took to the skies, circling above. Wong Lin strode forward across the grassy plain until he came to an open area, roughly 100 feet across. The grass there had been cleared, replaced by a crisscrossing network of trenches and intricate formation. Without even glancing at the pattern beneath his feet, Wong Lin stepped directly into the array. At its center, he sat down cross-legged. Since he had released the thunder frog and mosquito beast, he had allowed them to roam freely without recalling them. As for Su Ligua, Wong Lin couldn't be bothered to keep track of him. This place was one Wong Lin had discovered several days ago. After clearing the grass, he had set up formation seals and restriction seals. With the thunder frog and mosquito beast acting as guardians, the location offered decent security. Sitting cross-legged, Wong Lin formed hand seals and pressed down upon the array. Instantly, the formation trembled. Everything within it vanished, replaced by an ordinary grassland. From near or far, no one would detect anything amiss. Even stepping into it directly would feel perfectly normal. With the array activated, Wong Lin's eyes gleamed. His journey through the Thunder Immortal realm had been perilous, but the gains were immense. Yet he had never found the time to sort or refine them. He had originally planned to return to Azure Spirit Star to carry out the final treasure forging, but fate had instead brought him to this strange domain. I must refine the items gained from the Thunder Immortal realm as soon as possible. Only then can I strengthen myself enough to smooth the road ahead for escape. Wong Lin pondered for a moment, then slapped his storage pouch. Instantly, a piece of leather armor appeared in his hand. The armor was rough in texture, with some runes subtly etched into it. Holding the armor, Wong Lin gently caressed its surface with his left hand. Ancient god leather armor. Wong Lin murmured, his thoughts lingering for a moment. He raised his right hand and tossed the armor into the sky. In an instant, he exhaled a burst of essence spirit chi. A white flame suddenly appeared, surrounding the ancient god leather armor. Under the flame, the armor remained unchanged, but Wong Lin did not stop. Instead, he continued to expel more essence spirit chi. The previous owner of this armor was likely the carefree immortal, a figure who, although dead, had been extraordinarily powerful in his prime. Despite his death, his presence lingered in the armor as a faint and damaged fragment of divine consciousness. If this armor were to be left for another several thousand years, the broken essence spirit within would likely awaken on its own, forming a new consciousness. From then on, the armor would become a weapon spirit, Wong Lin thought. At his level of cultivation, he could discern such details. Weapon spirits, though not all formed in the same way, were mostly born from similar circumstances. The essence spirit chi Wong Lin expelled continued to wrap around the armor, time passing slowly. This was a gradual process because the divine consciousness within the ancient god leather armor was far stronger than Wong Lin's current abilities. Although the consciousness was damaged, it was not something to be underestimated. Over the course of countless years, it had already evolved toward becoming a weapon spirit. Although weapon spirits are precious, if I do not expel it, this armor will never truly belong to me. It will belong to that weapon spirit. This is the same as with the Renegade Immortal sword. Its true master can only be the spirit within. Moreover, this weapon spirit is made of an immortal's consciousness. The conflict between the immortal and the ancient god is inherent. Though time has allowed them to merge somewhat, it still cannot be considered truly compatible. A cold gleam flashed in Wong Lin's eyes as he closed them, firm in his decision to expunge the nascent weapon spirit before it could fully awaken. Days passed quickly. On the day when the ancient god leather armor had been refined by Wong Lin's essence spirit chi, a bluish mist began to rise from the armor. The mist seemed to writhe in pain as it was forcibly extracted from the armor by Wong Lin's essence spirit chi. Threads of light connected the mist and the armor, and as they were pulled apart, Wong Lin suddenly opened his eyes. A sharp light flashed within them as he raised his right hand and swung it down fiercely. The severing luo art was unleashed, cutting through the very rules, severing the last connection between the weapon spirit and the ancient god leather armor. With a snap, the threads broke, and the mist drifted upward, heading toward the sky. At that moment, Wong Lin slapped his storage pouch, and the soul banner appeared, forming a vast expanse of black mist. It swallowed the mist in an instant. The ancient god leather armor floated silently before Wong Lin. After absorbing the mist, he focused his eyes and released his divine sense, spreading it across the armor and leaving his mark. The imprint was deep, and as soon as it merged with the armor, it emitted an overwhelmingly ancient aura. The aura was so intense that it instantly swept through the surrounding area, creating a massive vortex. In the center of this vortex stood Wong Lin, who remained motionless. As he felt his divine sense imprinting the armor, a familiar feeling enveloped him. The familiar sensation came from the armor itself, warm and intimate, like a long-lost traveler suddenly reunited with family. This was Wong Lin's personal feeling, but it was also how the ancient god leather armor felt about him. The connection was mutual. The armor approached Wong Lin without him needing to summon it, integrating seamlessly into his chest. Wong Lin felt no resistance, only the slow absorption of the armor into his body, its presence becoming familiar and comforting. The ancient god leather armor fully integrated into Wong Lin's body and disappeared, wrapping around his essence spirit, becoming a part of it. Wong Lin's eyes gleamed with sharpness. He took a deep breath, touching his forehead, and instantly, a burst of light flashed above his crown. His essence spirit soared out, taking the form of a primordial thunder dragon. The ancient god leather armor was nearly invisible on the spirit, but Wong Lin could clearly feel that the defense of his essence spirit had reached an incredibly formidable level. Too bad I can't test how much force it can withstand, but it should be extremely strong. Wong Lin thought as his essence spirit returned to his body. Having refined the ancient god leather armor, Wong Lin did not pause. He opened his mouth and spat out a golden light, which instantly transformed into a golden lock. The lock radiated with a brilliant glow. Wong Lin remembered that this lock was something he had seized from a Thunder Immortal Palace emissary when he entered their teleportation array. The emissary's essence spirit was still contained within the soul banner. That emissary had once said he would trade a great treasure for his life. Staring at the golden lock, Wong Lin extended his divine sense and gently spread it over the lock. After refining his primordial spirit over these past few days, it was now effortless for him to erase the imprint of the previous owner's divine sense. The golden lock immediately dimmed and fell from midair, landing directly into Wong Lin's hand. Wong Lin's gaze flickered as he stared at the golden lock, muttering to himself, "This item is not bad, but compared to the mother-child Dao, it's lacking too much." However, the way it seals others' divine abilities is quite interesting. As Wong Lin's primordial energy surged through his right hand, he squeezed hard, crushing the golden lock with ease. With the manipulation of his primordial energy, Wong Lin's grip was so precise that, while crushing the lock, he didn't harm a single drop of the golden liquid inside. If the previous owner, the Thunder Immortal Palace emissary, had witnessed this act, he would have gasped in shock and felt immense pain. When the emissary of Thunder Immortal Palace acquired this treasure, he didn't think highly of it, but he still used it frequently. If he had to destroy it with his own hands, he could never bring himself to do so. In fact, it wasn't just the emissary, any cultivator at the Yinyang Void Realm, upon seeing Wong Lin's actions, would feel tremendous pain. After all, if a treasure was destroyed and the resulting item turned out ineffective, or if its value was far less than the intact treasure, such an action would be deemed foolish. For those still at the initial stages of cultivation, witnessing Wong Lin's behavior would not evoke a sense of pain, but rather complete shock, a profound shock. You must understand, a treasure like this, if it had been on Vermilion Bird Star 7 or 800 years ago, would have sparked a crazy scramble for it. Even Vermilion Bird Patriarch would have certainly participated in the fight. Unknowingly, after a millennium of cultivation, Wong Lin had reached such a level that he could casually crush a treasure like this, merely to see the divine abilities sealed within. In 1,000 years of cultivation, Wong Lin had gained not only in cultivation but also in vision and composure. Few things caught his eye now, even among the lower-grade treasures, unless they held special sentimental value or were treasures that had accompanied him through his 1,000 years of cultivation. A magical artifact that had been favored by the Thunder Immortal Palace emissary, even if weak, would still be at the immortal treasure level. Yet now, Wong Lin had easily crushed it. Even if it was destroyed, he felt no pain. His gaze fixated on the golden liquid between his fingers, and a sharp light flickered in his eyes. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the center of his forehead, and his third eye manifested in an instant. At the same time, a red light rapidly spread out like a fan, enveloping the golden liquid between his fingers. Under the power of the third eye, the golden liquid slowly dissipated, retreating towards its origin. However, this process was slow, and after a while, Wong Lin's third eye began to dim slightly. Yet the golden liquid had only dissipated halfway. This item can last this long under the third eye. There's something strange about it. A sharp gleam flashed in Wong Lin's eyes. His primordial energy surged rapidly, and without hesitation, he poured it all into his third eye's divine ability. Immediately, the red light grew more intense. The golden liquid's dissipation quickened, and after a moment, under the full force of Wong Lin's divine ability, the liquid fully vanished. It transformed into countless fine golden threads, twisting and intertwining to form a complex golden rune. This rune lasted less than 3 breaths before it collapsed and completely disappeared, leaving nothing in Wong Lin's fingers. Rune. Wong Lin's expression grew thoughtful. He tapped his storage pouch, and immediately, the immortal brush appeared. He took it in his hand and drew a quick line through the air. Moments later, a rune appeared in front of Wong Lin. It was identical to the golden rune formed by the golden threads. His gaze flickered as the rune appeared. There was no aura emanating from it. It appeared plain and unremarkable, with nothing particularly special about it. Wong Lin furrowed his brow slightly but soon focused his attention. After a moment, he closed his eyes, spreading out his divine sense. In an instant, he opened his eyes with surprise. My divine sense can't detect it. Wong Lin's eyes grew resolute. He raised his left hand, pointed at the rune, and it immediately shot out, speeding toward the mosquito beast that was flying happily in the sky. The mosquito beast, sensing something, immediately became alert. Its fur stood on end, and it quickly lowered its head, preparing to dodge. But under Wong Lin's calming influence, it hesitated, remaining still, staring at the rapidly approaching rune. The rune flashed and directly imprinted onto the mosquito beast. It immediately shattered, transforming into a surge of golden liquid that quickly enveloped its entire body. The mosquito beast struggled for a moment before breaking free and flying off a distance, casting a resentful glance at Wong Lin while letting out a few low whimpers. Wong Lin's eyes lit up. When he had used the immortal brush earlier, he had only mobilized 1/10 of his primordial energy, yet even so, the newly learned runes still displayed such power. If he were to unleash the full force of his primordial energy while drawing this rune, its strength would surely double. The true divine ability of this treasure lies within the rune. Within the magical artifact, its power is restricted, so it cannot reach its full potential. But by drawing its essence directly, the power is naturally different. Wong Lin put away the immortal brush and, after a brief moment of contemplation, analyzed the reason. If it were anyone else, unless they possessed a divine ability like the third eye to perceive the essence, even if they retrieved the golden liquid, they would only be left sighing in vain. This is the first rune I've drawn out of a magical artifact, and its function is to seal. Let's call it the sealing rune. Wong Lin raised his right hand, drawing a few more times, committing it deeply to memory. Once he was certain he wouldn't forget, he lowered his hand. At that moment, a sudden thought struck him. Since this sealing rune was drawn from the magical artifact, it can certainly be placed back into the artifact, granting it this divine ability. Wong Lin's eyes gleamed with a strange light, his heart racing. My treasures are mostly acquired from the outside world, and I rarely craft them myself. Wong Lin opened his mouth and spat out a grain of sand. The moment it appeared, it began to expand infinitely, transforming into a 100-meter fragment seal. Staring at the 100-meter fragment, the strange look in Wong Lin's eyes deepened. This object is a fragment of the immortal realm, forged in the heavenly tribulation. After taking a strike from immortal monarch Qishui, it wasn't even scratched. Its strength has already reached a certain level. But as a magical artifact, it is incomplete. When it fell, it was only due to the immortal power pressure that it trapped people, preventing their escape. In reality, its power is not great, and it can't compare to treasures with powerful destructive abilities like the Submother Dao Crumbling Art or the Third Divine Chariot. Wong Lin took out the immortal brush once more and began to draw in the void before him. In no time, a sealing rune appeared. Now, I'll grant this object a divine ability, the sealing divine ability. Wong Lin suddenly rose to his feet. With a flick of his right hand, the rune flew out, immediately imprinting itself onto the 100-meter fragment seal, merging into it. Without pausing, Wong Lin's body shot up into the air, his right hand moving rapidly as the sealing runes appeared one after another, each one landing on the fragment seal. Gradually, Wong Lin's movements became faster and faster. His figure turned into a blur, constantly circling the fragment seal. By the end, his speed was so fast it seemed like a bolt of lightning, accompanied by deafening thunderous roars reverberating around him. As Wong Lin grew more proficient, the sealing runes multiplied. At first, only one rune appeared with each stroke, but by the end, more than 10 sealing runes emerged at once, all merging into the 100-meter fragment seal. This process seemed endless. Wong Lin showed no signs of fatigue, his eyes fixed solely on the fragment seal, and nothing else mattered to him. He continued to draw rune after rune, seamlessly embedding them into the seal. As the runes accumulated, the color of the fragment seal slowly shifted to a faint golden hue, radiating a subtle golden light. Yet Wong Lin didn't stop. Like lightning, he continued to inscribe runes across every part of the 100-meter fragment seal. 3 days later, Wong Lin's body wavered and he landed on the ground. He immediately sat cross-legged to meditate and regain his energy. His face had turned slightly pale. After 3 days of constant exertion, even with his cultivation, he was beginning to feel the strain. The 100-meter fragment seal had now shrunk to about 80 meters in size. Its color remained faintly golden, but now it was slightly deeper. After resting for several hours, Wong Lin opened his eyes. He moved once more, resuming his rune drawing. As time passed, after 7 more breaks, the size of the fragment seal continued to shrink, from 50 meters to 40, then 30 meters. By the end, it had reduced to just 10 meters. The golden light emanating from it had deepened, and from a distance, it looked like a golden sun, emitting beams of light for miles. Looking at this treasure, Wong Lin's fatigue vanished, replaced by a surge of excitement. He took a deep breath, rested a little more, then flew back out. This time, he spent 5 continuous days refining the treasure. 5 days later, Wong Lin's body landed on the ground. His face was as pale as death, and his steps were slightly unsteady. Yet the excitement in his eyes was at its peak. From this day forward, this is the treasure I, Wong Lin, have crafted. I shall name it the Immortal Sealing Seal. Wong Lin's voice echoed, filling the heavens and earth. In front of him was a 3-inch seal, radiating dazzling golden light. To an ordinary person, one glance would be enough to pierce their eyes, as if the light were charging into their brain, destroying everything. Even cultivators, if their cultivation was insufficient, would experience their minds shaking violently, their bodies stinging, as though pierced by countless swords. Even those with advanced cultivation would feel as though their divine souls were being sealed the moment they laid eyes on it. The 3-inch small seal radiated golden light, its brilliance extending for miles, and a rich wave of immortal power spread out wildly. Over it, a strong aura of sealing energy enveloped it. This seal was the result of Wong Lin's over a month of continuous engraving and fusion. He roughly calculated that the number of sealing runes on it exceeded 600,000. Over 600,000 sealing runes, fused into a 100-foot fragment, had condensed it into a mere 3 inches. The divine abilities contained within it filled Wong Lin with confidence at this very moment. He gazed at the immortal sealing seal, his eyes flashing as he formed hand seals and cast more restrictions onto it. Gradually, the immortal chi on the seal was concealed, and even the sealing power was mostly hidden. After a moment, this incomprehensibly powerful treasure, the immortal sealing seal, which would one day shake the cultivation world, came into being. This is more in line with the image of a magical treasure in my mind. Wong Lin stared at the now concealed seal, which appeared like an ordinary artifact, his eyes gleaming with a hint of excitement.